doing? Is anybody moist? Because it's humid. Coming from a desert area, I'm not used to that part. So, but I'm so happy to be here. Honestly, you guys are so great. I've been loving the cosplay. There was a couple of Granullo cosplayers that came to see me earlier today. Are they here by any chance? Hey, you guys, look. Is Brittany here? Hey, Brittany. Brittany gave me a pocket Morgan plushie. I've honestly already scared a couple people with it. I just camouflage against my black shirt, they don't know it's there, and I'm like, ha-ha! So I'm very excited. Thank you so much. It's the best thing. I've been laughing about it all day. It's the best. And I'm seriously glad to be here because I was supposed to come a couple years ago.
Yeah.
And I had to cancel because I had to move that weekend because the people who were building my house in Colorado were late. Supposed to move in July and not have any problems coming to DragonCon, but then they got behind and they said, now you're closing on Labor Day weekend. And I really wanted to come to DragonCon, but I also did not want to make a fatal error with my wife and tell her you're moving by yourself. So that's why I had to cancel, but I'm so glad I got to come back. Carol has had me up to Dahlonega, and I love being out here. And also I've got some peeps up in Chattanooga. And if any of you are from that area or would like to see me next year, I won't be coming back to DragonCon because of other commitments, but I will be in Chattanooga next year for LibertyCon. So it's a smaller little thing, so if you want to come see me there, I'm the guest of honor, so lots of opportunity to hang out. So. And then, I wrote some things down, I just want to forget it. Yesterday, somebody brought me whiskey. Like, actually a couple of bottles. And more than I can drink. And did somebody say you got more? Yeah. Oh shit. My readers are awesome. This is the best thing. And this is like a benefit that I never really anticipated.
Did they bring you some MOAs?
And so, thank you. And then I've also been seeing, somebody had Atticus cosplay yesterday. And then I had Morgan cosplay as well. Really cool, like mask over the, blackened eyes and stuff like that, like a crow mask. It's actually pretty damn scary. As it should be, right?
Why don't we see if there are any Iron Druid Chronicle folks in this audience right now? Anybody?
Hey, are you cosplaying?
I'm inspired by your stuff.
Yeah. Awesome, damn.
Can you stand up so we can see you? Anybody in any other kind of Atticus?
That's fantastic.
Oh, nice.
So Brittany and Laura, will you stand up real quick? So they're both doing Granullo, and they did their own, they customized the tattoos that you can find on my website. They tweaked them in Photoshop, and you print them out on temporary tattoo paper, and they're ready to go. So they did, there's a barn owl and a fox, where she wanted to do those. Did you tweak the others too, or just use them? Just those two. All right, and then what did you have a Cooper hawk and a lynx instead of a black jaguar. So so they took the Granullo designs and just messed with them a little bit, made their own thing. I totally encourage you guys to do that. Have fun with that. That's awesome. So, thank you. So I paid the fella who was designing those illustrations to just do the arm stuff.
Redbreast.
And I couldn't really afford to do the whole, because it was $1,000. I just wanted to do it so that you guys could, do what you wanted to do with it. But doing the rest of the body would be probably another couple thousand because he's a serious illustrator and he's doing some, awesome stuff. So please feel free to go to my website. It's on the goodies page, and you'll scroll down. You'll see Atticus's tattoos. Then you'll also see Granullo's. And I haven't had them do Owens, but again, you can take what's there and then mess around with it in Photoshop, do whatever you like, because of course, that's a large part of the fun. Every druid is going to have different animal forms, So, yeehaw. I'm so excited to see that. Seriously, it's made my day, that you guys took the trouble to cosplay. So, I wanted to tell you about a couple of things. There's some things that I like to geek out about. Some things my publicist requires me to say so that I don't get flogged, later. And then we are going to get to questions from you guys too, because I want to make sure that you leave with whatever you want to know.
Which reminds me, where
Yeah.
is my mic runner? Okay, this is Melinda,
Hi,
right
Melinda.
here. So when either Kevin or myself tells you it's time to start lining up for questions for him, you'll go over here with Melinda. Thank you. Okay, back to you.
Cool. So things that I've been geeking out about, this is just me geeking out with, sharing with you. I got to meet Fran Wild, who is an awesome, pretty new author. She writes stuff that's sort of skates the line between YA and adult fiction, and she writes what she calls sci-fi. It's people who are flying, but with mechanical contraptions. It's not steampunk or nothing like that. But beautifully written stuff. She's already won an award and got nominated for Nebula as well. She was nominated for a Dragon Award here, and she's fantastic. And her sequel to that is called Cloudbound. So the first one's called Updraft. I'm sorry. And the second one's called Cloudbound, and it is here early. It's not out until I think next month, but you can get it here all special and early, and I did. I was like the person who said, I went and I bought it right away because I knew it was going to be here, and then I was the first person to have her sign it. That was victory number one. And then I also Sherry Priest is one of my favorite authors. I've been geeking out about her for years, and she has written, and I'm reading it right now, The Family Plot. Okay? And this is set in Chattanooga. And what Sherry is super good at doing is telling ghost stories. Because up in Chattanooga, there's a hell of a lot of ghosts. Alright? There's a huge Civil War cemetery, and she lives 2 miles from one of the biggest ones in the United States. And I went walking around there with her dogs and stuff, and we were looking at all the names on the tombstones and different kinds of Victorian, interesting headstones that they have out there. And she's just full of ghost stories. So I knew that she was writing this for since last year. She was kind of updating progress, And so I've been waiting for it to come out, and it's not out yet. But again, it's here at DragonCon early. So I also got that done. I bought it right away, and then got her to sign it. So this is fantastic. You guys like spooky stuff and just that building sense of dread, but yet in the safety of your own home with a Maggie and a puppy. That's what I like. That's the only way I can handle scary stuff, right? We've got to be in a secret place, and then I'm like, all right, bring it. So, and that's what Sherry's great at. So, I highly recommend going and grabbing this if you can. It's down at the Missing Volume, which is booth 1300 in America's Mark building 2, right? And they also have all of my books there. If you've been wanting a signed book, I signed everything, got them all, except for State, they sold out. But books 1 through 7 are there, and I would be happy to personalize something to you. You would already get it signed when you get there, so please give them a visit for my stuff, for definitely share. She's so good. So then, I'm sorry.
What's the name of the booth again?
The booth is called The Missing Volume. And they're, I'm not sure where they're based. Is it a Georgia store? Is it an Atlanta store? I'm not sure.
DragonCon every year, but I'm not sure that they're from Georgia. I don't believe so, but they're here every year.
But they're an independent small business, which is awesome. And, please do support them and, buy some books from those folks. They've got signed books, basically. What they're carrying are all the authors who are actually here at the con. So almost everything you're going to find there is already going to be signed. Anyway, so it's a great place to go score some stuff. Yeah, it's all at the Missing Volume, and believe me, I've signed many copies. There should be plenty for you guys there. Did you have a question?
They're actually sold out of your books right now.
Wait, no, really?
Yeah.
Well, I was just there, seriously, an hour ago.
I was looking for something to grab because I just found out your panel was there and they said they were out.
That's weird. No, I was there signing. I saw that they had like probably 10 copies of every single book except for State. They had books 1 through 7 were supposed to be there. I
There is
swear.
another bookseller. Maybe, were you looking at Larry Smith, maybe?
Maybe.
Oh,
that could
yeah.
be a lot, okay.
If it was Larry Smith, yeah, they probably don't. The Missing Volume's got all my stuff. I swear. 1300 is the booth. Okay. So the next thing. Now I'm getting into stuff that my publicist is going to make me sick. Seriously, he threatened to flog me with a whip of oiled leather.
At least it was oils.
See, you would never even do that. Best guy. How many of you are already aware of the purloined poodle coming out? Wow, almost all of you. This means that I do not blog in vain. The news is getting out. But for those of you who do not know, on September 30th, there is a novella coming out from Oberon's point of view. The whole thing I love to do is, the whole Iron thing is just me mashing things up because that's what I just, all the things I love, I just cram them into a book. So the Purloined Poodle is a mashup of Edgar Allan Poe, because it's, the Purloined Letter, and Sherlock Holmes, and Moby Dick. You'll find out why. Doesn't have anything to do with the actual whale. And then
The Great White Salt.
also there's an extra doggy in there, and this is all taking place right after the events of Staked. Okay? So, it's going to be available in ebook in a limited run edition of print. This is the first novella I've been able to get out to you in print that's, just like a standalone. Two Ravens and One Crow, for example, is at the back of Hunted for free, right? But I couldn't get the others into print. So, but this one is in print. There's a limited edition that sold out like in a day. But there are still copies available of the hardcover, the trade hardcover with a lovely, lovely jacket illustration. If you want to grab that from either Subterranean Press directly, or from it's available like on Amazon and Barnes & Noble too, if you want to order those. But again, that's a limited press run. Once they're gone, they're gone. They're only making 2,000. So, buying even the trade edition is still going to be a limited run and kind of worth something if you're into collecting stuff. And guess what? I will sign it if you bring it to me. I always like it when people say, is there a charge for you to sign things? I'm like, dude, I'm so glad you just bought my car. No, I do not charge for these. So there's that. And then it'll also be out on ebook, and then it'll also be out in audio. I've already listened to it. How many of you guys are Luke Daniels? Such an amazing job. On the Snake tour, I purposely went to Michigan where Luke lives. I had a stop in Lansing so that I could do a joint appearance with Luke, because I finally just wanted to meet the guy and then also watch his face when he did Oberon's voice. So I said, Luke, just riff as Oberon on, his favorite foods for a while. And then his eyes closed. It was great to watch him do it. So, but anyway, Luke's already recorded the Purloined Poodle. It's available for pre-order on Audible. It's 3 hours long, and it'll give you a laugh or two, because it's Oberon. And then other stuff that's coming up. Now that I've finished my epic fantasy, which I'll get to in a second, right now what I'm working on is a book of Iron Druid short stories called Besieged, and that will be out next July from Del Rey. So in all the formats you want, and it'll be all new stuff. There's a whole bunch of stories that I've been wanting to tell for a long time, but I've never really been able to get to them. And I'm like, if I don't get to them now, when am I going to get to them? Because the series is almost over. So I've got to do it. And so let me see. I've got one about Atticus and Shakespeare, which is already been published. But again, it was from Subterranean Press in a limited press run. They only made 2,000 copies, and they're sold out. So it's never been an ebook before, and it's never been in audio. So we're including it here so that everybody can hear it. So. And that will be, one of them, Atticus actually meets William Shakespeare and provides the inspiration for part of one of Shakespeare's plays. And I had a great time researching that, and my editor at Subterranean was actually kind of a Shakespearean scholar. And so she researched everything, checked up on me, and she's like, oh, you actually got it all right. I'm like, yes. Yes. So, I'm sorry? No, it's a Scottish play. So, then we have, that story is called Goddess at the Crossroads, and it's dealing with Hecate, or Hecate. Did you know that Hecate, Hecate, the whole thing about calling it Hecate was really an Elizabethan English thing, doing it with just 2 syllables. It also was kind of easier for Shakespeare's poetry to do it that way. But that was the way they said it back in that time, and then before and after that time, it was 3 syllables. kind of interesting little tidbit. Did you have a question?
I was just trying to order the print copy from Subterranean Press of the Pool and Pool, and it says sold out.
Wait, does it say, is that the special edition or the trade? There should be one that says trade hardcover, $20, that's what it is.
Trade $20 sold out.
I swear to you guys, I do not know these things.
I just
do
ordered
not
it on
know.
Yeah, I just got it on
Amazon.
Amazon, so.
That's why.
Bought it on Amazon?
Yeah.
Yes.
There you go. There you go. Also, I don't know how convenient New Orleans is for you guys, or Phoenix, if any of you are from that area, but I am actually going to be signing the Purloined Poodle on September 30th through October 2nd at another convention that's going on in New Orleans called StoryCon. I'm mostly going to New Orleans for the beignets. But then I'm going to be also signing in Phoenix on October 3rd. So that might be part of the problem, is that those two bookstores who were selling at those events have bought a whole bunch of copies in advance. But I swear I thought there were some available. I apologize. So, where was I? Besieged. Besides Atticus and Shakespeare, I just got done writing a story about Atticus in the gold rush in San Francisco. So you can imagine how, the elementals felt about that. Also, how many of you read the novella Grimoire of the Lamb? Most of you, some of you? Yeah. So that was Atticus talking about, it was really an adventure set 4 years before Hounded, where he had to go to Egypt because of, some shenanigans going on there. And he was telling Oberon about how, hey, I used to, the Egyptian guys don't really like me that much because of what I did back in the day. So I always wanted to tell the story of what Atticus actually did back in the day, and so I'm doing it. And it's called The Eye of Horus. And so that will be out in Besieged as well. And then I got a couple, this is not all just Atticus' point of view stories. I have a story two stories from Owen's point of view. And one it tells the story of how he became Atticus's Archdruid. Like, how did he actually meet Archdruid, get in that, so it's really set, before the Common Era. And it's called The Boogeyman of Burrow Bog, which is a real bog in Ireland. Burrow Bog! So that's going to be coming out there, and then also one set in the modern day, a little adventure with Owen and his new apprentices. So that'll be in there as well, and then a Granuaile story where she is having some good times with the witches in Poland. When I say good times, of course, I mean Grit Peril. So that's all new stuff that'll be in there, and then a couple of other little surprises as well. So that'll be out next July. I have to finish it by the end of October. So I'm almost there. I'm getting there. And then after that, I began to work on the last Iron Druid book. And it's called Scourged. And that I have to finish by May. So you will get it probably in the spring of 2018, because that's the way publishing works. It's about a year to get a book out. This thing where they're doing Besieged very quickly, like they're actually getting out less than a year after I finish it, that's because they know I'm going to finish it very soon. They also know, kind of what to do with the covers and stuff like that at this point. And I should say on the Besieged cover, I haven't seen it yet, but they are planning to put Owen on the cover with Atticus on this one. Brass knuckles and everything, I can't wait. It's gonna be so fun. So, all right, so then another thing that I wrote, I got asked to, and I don't know if this is like been formally announced out there yet, but we do things at cons, sometimes we announce things when we're not supposed to, just because we figured, there's no way you can just get out there.
We're not gonna tell anybody.
It's an anthology called Urban Enemies, and in which all of, a whole bunch of urban fantasy authors tell a story from the point of view of one of their series villains. So, I'm in there with a bunch of other urban fantasy authors. And what I'm doing is I've written them, I've already turned it in, it's a story about Loki. And Loki is making preparations for Ragnarok. He is trying to get some, help.
Does he have a stutter?
He goes to hell. And I'll just leave it there. I don't want to spoil anything else. So, yeah, he's going to hell to get some help. So, and it's basically something that's set right before Scourged will begin. So that's going to be fun. And that should before Scourged will come out. So it'll still be in sequence for you guys as readers. All right, and I think that's everything that my publisher really would like me to say. I've done my promo. Oh wait, the Epic, that's one other thing. So next year, I have this teacher coming out in July, but then in September, it's my new thing. Yeah, it's an epic fantasy trilogy, and the first book is coming out. It's called The Plague of Giants. And it's a completely different world. I drew the map myself, which was I had so much fun doing that. And that is structurally, I just like to do stuff that's a little bit different, right? So I didn't want to write the same old sort of epic fantasy. So I wrote 11 first-person points of view, which is unusual for epic fantasies, to my knowledge. I don't know if it's even been done before. I hope you guys enjoy it. Please give it a try. And I hope you dig the new magic system and all the stuff in there. It should be fun. So, yeehaw. When I have to look at I should be able to share a cover with you somewhat soon because I've already seen the photo shoot that they did for it. Now what they're doing is their Photoshop magic. And when they have that all set to go, I, of course, will share it with you all. So you can see. All right. Other things that one more thing I wanted to tell you. Some of you, I think, I met a couple of folks here today who said, hey, I knew you were going to be here because you posted on Facebook. How many of you knew I was going to be here because of Facebook? Quite a few. Yeah, awesome, thank you. How about Twitter? Anyone of you knew I was going to be here because of Twitter? Sweet. Okay, there are two apps that are out there now that I think are pretty nifty. Parts of the internet you may have noticed can be toxic. And so I kind of like to avoid negativity where I can. There's a couple that are really cool. One unfortunately is only for iOS right now. They're going to try to bring it to Android, but it's called Litsy, L-I-T-S-Y. You can get it for free in the App Store. What it does is it basically allows you, it's like Instagram for just books. It's like Bookstagram, right? So what you do is you have folks that you're following, they'll recommend, hey, I love this book that I've already read, or they will do a blurb about this is what I'm currently reading. And it allows you to just kind of geek out about what you're excited about reading. I like that part of it because I don't like to review books so much. It's over. When I'm most excited is when I'm in the middle of the book or about to read the book or something like that, and I've got hot chocolate and a puppy. You know, those things excite me, and I want to take a picture of that and share it with folks. So if you are on, or if you want to get on Litsy, I'm there as Kevin Hearne, and I'm making. What I'm doing is I'm sharing on there both what I'm currently reading, and then I'm also doing a series of bookshelf reviews, and by which I mean here are books that I have already read in the past that I'm keeping on my bookshelf because I really love them, and here's why. So even though they might be books that have been around for a while, maybe you haven't heard of them. So yeah, I love the fact that it's not self-promo. It's not a thing where if you follow an author, they're going to be promoting their own book all the time. It's always just people geeking out about books together. And you get to add your, like if you like something that you're seeing in your feed, you're just scrolling through and you're seeing all these gorgeous books, often paired with food, which I really think is awesome. Look at this whiskey I'm drinking along with this book, or whatever they're having. And I love that part of it. And then if you like a book, there's always a link to the book where you can find out more about it. And there's also a little button that says, add this to my stack of stuff to read. So then you can take that in to a bookstore, or when you're ordering on Amazon or whatever, but you just have that there and you don't have to remember how to spell the author's name or the whole title and stuff like that. So I love it as an app. It's fantastic. And yeah, if you follow me there, yeehaw, I'll be sharing lots of good stuff. Another one that is really cool is IMSI, and it's in beta. And I do have a blog post right now with links to it. So if you one link is to my personal little page, and another one is to a community that I've started, writers and readers, and a lot of sci-fi fantasy readers and writers are already there. Lilith St. Croix is in there, and Delilah Dawson, and Chuck Wayne is there, and so on and so forth. So think of IMSI as a cross between Reddit and Twitter, and that is a pretty safe space because what they're doing is they're trying to build it in such a way that you reduce trolls quite a bit. For example, if you're going to comment, you have to choose a name. You can only use that name once. You can't go back and create a little egg account or something like that, change your name and come back and comment more and harass somebody. So if you use that name and then you get banned from that little community community you're in, you're gone. And that's not IMSI that's doing the banning, it's the community leaders who are doing the banning. You don't have to wait on this unresponsive corporate thing. So, I mean, I see so many of my writer friends who are women getting harassed so much, and Twitter does nothing about it. Well, IMSI is giving them the opportunity and the tools to create a space that's safe. If a troll's going to come in there and mess with them, they can do it exactly once and they're gone forever and they can't come back. So, yeah, that's how to do it. So, it's called IMZY. And if you want to go get a link, like what I do is, since I am a community leader, I have a whole bunch of invitations that I can give out. If you're there just as a random person, then they give you 5 invitations for your friends, but they've given me hundreds. So if you follow a link to one of my communities, either Pineapple Writers or Writers Grow, which is my little blog thing, then you request an invitation to IMSI. I approve it. You're in. You are under no obligation to stay in my community. You also follow just people you want to follow. Again, everything is opt-in instead of like, here's all these things, you know, and it's always in your face. So if you don't want to see political stuff, don't follow the political threads at all, and you will only get books and puppies and whatever else it is that you're into, you know what I mean? So, by the way, fantastic shirt over here. She's got a Gil Ferrets or Bastard shirt. That is fantastic. Yeah. That design, by the way, was made by one of my former students. She is now a professional graphic designer in San Francisco. But she was one of my yearbook editors back when I was teaching high school. And so that was one of those kids who really liked that kind of stuff so much. She went into graphic design and makes her living in it now. So I love that shirt. So it's cool to see it. All right, I did it. I did all the things.
Okay, now once again, there will be a quiz. No, I'm just kidding. Are you ready for some questions, sir?
Heck yes.
Okay, well, let's get people lining up with Melinda. If you have a question for Kevin, please. And while they're lining up, can I ask you a question?
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious from, your series has been going on for a little while now. Is there something that you did in one of the earlier books that you kind of wish you hadn't?
Yeah. No, I mean, there are things that there are phrases and things that I've put in there that I wish I had thought more clearly about writing them. It's mostly the first 3 books. I wrote those first 3 books in isolation, because what Del Rey did, for those of you who don't know, they basically released those books in 2011, 1 month apart, which means I had to write all 3 books without ever having anybody read them but my editor. So I had no feedback of any kind, and it was just like going straight through. The one thing my editor said when I was writing Hammer, I'm writing Hammer, and I'm like, all right, you're going to Asgard. One does not simply walk into Asgard, right? Somebody's going to die. And my editor, Trisha, she's like, anybody but Oberon. I'm like, really? I can kill Atticus? Yep. So, but I mean, I wasn't planning on it anyway, but you know, the fact that she just told me that, watch out, don't do this. You know, and I was really surprised. And I said, okay, well, you know why? You know, stuff happens. And she says, no, you don't understand, this is going to be the most popular character in the series. Really?
Yeah.
I had no idea. I seriously had no idea when I was writing it, because I was just being a smartass, right? Again, I'm writing these things to entertain myself, but I didn't realize Oberon would be that popular. Because what I'm doing mostly as an author is thinking about these long story arcs and the development of Atticus, and you know, the slow development of Granuaile into the badass, you know, that kind of thing. And honestly, I will share something with you. This is really the story of Granuaile becoming a druid, and not the fact, you know, Atticus does not grow that much. He does grow, he does change, right? But the person that I'm always interested in is Granuaile, because she is us. If we were going to be, you know, become druids and have access to that power, what would we do with it? What would we be faced with, and what kind of decisions would we have to make? And the first most important decision she had to make was just to decide to become one, because she has to basically leave her family behind for this. It's an incredible sacrifice. And why would she do that? What was all that, you know, what was going on there? So I find her incredibly interesting as a character, and I like, you know, to think about where she's going. Of course, Atticus has his own arc as well, you know, everybody has their own thing going on there. And then if I'm so sorry to make you wait, but if I can just talk one little more, a little bit about something. Because somebody was asking me, you know, well, where did this all come from and what was going on with the Widow McDonough? And the Widow McDonough is the only character who is based on a real person. That's my grandmother, who used to sit out on the porch and with her little glass of whiskey, and yes, she will judge you and as you go by, you know. But she was, both she and then my father kind of declined in health when I was unable to visit. And I wanted to get back to them, but I couldn't, and I missed, you know, saying goodbye. So, that part of it, my father passed away right after I finished writing Hexed. My mom was able to read it to me, and then like 3 days later, he was gone. But I missed that. So, while I was writing Hammer, that was very much obviously in my mind. And so, that is why you have that passage in Hammer, where Atticus takes the time to sit down with the widow and say goodbye just in case, and tell her what she meant to him, just in case I never see you again. And that is something I think we always should do when we have a chance. You got, while you're here, and you got people you love, tell them. Tell them. So, go ahead.
Thank you for coming. My question is about archaeological evidence around Stonehenge. So Atticus is ancient already, but there is some evidence that Stonehenge is almost twice as old as he is. So I don't remember there being any parts in the books where he would ever think, you know, as a young man, that this is an ancient thing. Is there anything like that, or were you aware of that research?
I have purposely avoided the whole Stonehenge thing because we keep discovering stuff and we're not sure. There's so many theories and nobody can really prove anything. If I go there and if I write something, it's going to be wrong. And I really like everything I do to be as accurate as possible. So, and one of the benefits of having a first-person point of view is, if the character doesn't directly experience it or think about it, you don't have to talk about it in your book. So that's something that I have very purposely avoided because we just don't know. I hope we do know and we figure it out someday. It's fascinating stuff. I was reading a book about, oh God, what's it called? There's this really cool book that this fella did about, he was looking at the roads that the old Romans built throughout the continent when they were conquering the Gauls and the Druids and all that stuff. And he was basically saying, you know what? The Druids, you know, these roads that the Romans were all famous for, and like, oh my God, they're so amazing. They built these roads through France. Pretty much all they did was put some stones down on top of stuff the Druids already had. And the reason it was so straight and so awesome and, you know, so efficient, you know, how did they get through Gaul? The roads were already there. The Druids built it. He was pretty much figured out how they did it, how they had used the land, mathematically figuring out where are the best points to put sort of those either visual or sound sorts of towers to put, you know, to carry messages around. And he had all this proof laid out in this thing. And of course, I'm spacing the name of the book. The author's first name is Graham. And it just came out either a year or two ago. And I was like, oh, this is so cool. So the Druids were super advanced mathematically, astronomically, and all that stuff. We can kind of figure it out, that part of it. And Stonehenge probably, it had to have some significance, right? But we don't know for sure yet. Okay. I'm sorry, did that answer your question? Okay, good. Thanks. Yes, sir.
Yes, first of all, thank you very much for the Iron Girl series. It's grand.
Oh, thank you.
My question is, please tell me you're not going to leave these poor characters alone and add a spin-off something.
Wait, I'm sorry, you want me to spin off something or you don't want?
No. Please, add more. More!
Okay.
Leave that dog alone.
Yeah, I do have folks asking me, like, why 9? And there's a few reasons. One is primarily a character-based reason. In Irish mythology, if you go back and read the old stories about the Tuatha Dé Danann and stuff like that, whenever they had some important shit to do, it was always in multiples of 9. When Nuada, the king, lost his arm, and Miach, who was slain, was able to rebuild his arm, flesh and bone, and restore him to his kingship, that took, I forget if it's 9 weeks or 9 months of chanting to regrow his arm. okay? So that's one example, but almost all the time you see whatever is important takes 9 somethings to happen, okay? So a character who's telling you a story, who's born in that culture, he's going to tell his own story in 9 installments. I'm cheating by putting in short stories and novellas, okay? But in terms of actual books, yeah, it's always planned to be 9. That's one thing, is that there's very, rock solid mythological / historical reasons to do it. Another one is just, I personally can't handle book series that keep going forever. I think stories should have an end, and that's satisfying and so on. So this particular arc will end, but that doesn't mean that we're done with the world. You might have noticed in book 8 we have some new characters coming along.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a hint.
Nudge, nudge.
So thanks, man.
Again, thank you very much for running this amazing series. My quick question was, how is it that Atticus, who spends a lot of time in Arizona, desert areas, and barefoot, is able to walk around on what is probably searing asphalt all the time in the middle of fights?
Yeah, believe it or not, that you could build up some pretty good calluses. And here's how I know this. My father grew up in Arizona during the Great Depression, and he didn't have shoes until he was 11 years old. And so he had to go everywhere as a kid, barefoot. Now, he did run from shade to shade, right? Wherever he could, because there's a significant difference of 10 to 20 degrees between the sun and the shade. But he had to go everywhere on that and just deal, because, when he was fishing in the canal for their dinner, he, would tell me, like, you get a catfish out of the canal, he's got to run home, and he's running past all these people who are like, oh my God, that's fresh food, kid, I'll give you whatever you want for it. Nope, it's for me. He's got to run through this, to get back home. So that was a reality of the time, and of course, for a fellow who's been around this long, he's probably built up some pretty good calluses. I mean, we're not talking Hobbit feet, but he got something going on. Plus, he can deaden pain and things like that if it actually becomes a problem. Yes?
Hello, I was wondering if you realized when you named the character that Melina means raspberry, because it makes me giggle every single time.
I did. I have like a friend of a friend who they're immigrants from Warsaw, who did all of the Polish stuff for me, and that's actually still up on my site. There's recordings of her saying all the Polish phrases on my website that you can click on and listen to them, So that was fantastic help to have. And then, of course, I went to Poland during the time I was researching state. So all of those locations throughout state. I went to Poland and Prague and Rome, and so everything there is real, right? But while I was in Poland, my Polish program, this is a weird thing to say, I'm very big in Poland. But because, honestly, the Polish readers are fantastic folks. And they're like, thank you for, we can't believe that there's a book written by an American that doesn't treat Polish people as a joke, That, and so many people forget them. It's always about Germans or Russians or something like that. And it's like, this is cool. Here's a story in which we have some Polish characters who are kicking ass. And that's so refreshing, and thank you, right? And I'm like, thank you for Shabrovka, because that stuff is fantastic, right? But also, I'm starting to pick up some of the languages as I'm spending a few days there, and you're just saturated with it, right? You're immersed, and I'm going around, and I can't really speak it well, but I started to be able to read it. And so, I'm going around with my guide, his name is Adrian, and we're walking down through Poznan, downtown, and there's a little sandwich board outside this little cafe, and I said, Adrian, does that sign right there say beer pudding? In Polish, and he's like, well, yes, it does. I said, well, don't you think we should go inside? It is really important to learn language as fast as you can. You're missing out on so much good stuff if you don't start reading it right away. So, but I had a great time in Poland. It was fantastic. Did I answer your question? Yeah, cool. Yes.
We're almost done with the DragonCon vendor, so I had to write my question down.
Sure.
Was health.
Mm-hmm.
Do you get drawn into writing scenes like that, like we get, and feel that tension as we're reading it? Like, do you ever just have to stop for a minute and take a breather, because it's getting
Well, I have to stop and pour some whiskey. But yeah, I mean, yeah, there's sometimes, yeah, I mean, while I'm writing, I get into, you know, bits where, well, okay, for writing Hamburg's, the last battle scene that goes on for I don't know how many pages, but it's like the big fight, right? The giants are there and the gods are there and so on and so forth. And I don't know how many pages it wound up being, but when I looked at it later, I'm like, oh my God, it's like 30 to 50 pages of just straight, you know, fighting. Well, I wrote that in a couple of days with one song playing. It was Amon Amar's Twilight of the Thunder God. You know, because the lyrics to that, if you're not familiar, is Thor, Odin's son, you know, protector of mankind, something, ride to meet your fate, Ragnarok awaits. So it was like the best thing. It's like, ride to meet your fate, Thor, you're toast. You know, and so that I was listening to that over and over again. It's very aggressive music, and I'm not really a person who likes to fight, kind of a pacifist. So it's ironic that I have to, you know, I make a large part of my living just writing fight scenes and, you know, trying to be as explicit as possible with it and all that kind of stuff. But I have to get myself into sort of this aggressive mood to do it. And so I listen to really strong heavy metal, you know, to get there. But then I'll also be feeling tension or, you know, I'll be, you know, crying over fits and so on and so forth. So, yeah. That bit in Hunted, when a lot of people, there's a couple of parts in Hunted actually, where people were like, "What? Fool, you made me cry." Don't worry, I was crying too. it's fair. Yes.
First off, yes, Hunted did make me cry. Thank you for that.
Yeah. No, the one thing was like I didn't like think unintended consequences. A trucker said, "You almost made me crash."
Yeah, audiobook.
Yeah, he was listening to the audiobook and he didn't think, you know, he didn't know it was coming, right? He's sitting there crying. He's got this, you know, incredible tonnage, you know, foot on the pedal, and now he can't see. That's bad. I was like, just don't listen to my audiobooks in the truck, man. Go ahead.
So my question is, when you started writing the series, or when you were inspired to write the series, did the idea, the bare bones of it, kind of come to you, start to finish? Did you know how the last book was going to end when you started writing Hounded, or did it kind of develop as you wrote it?
Developed as I wrote it, because when I was writing Hounded, first of all, I didn't even think it was going to sell. I never intended to even try to sell it. I was writing it for fun, seriously, just to entertain myself, because I've been writing for 19 years, and at that point I had not thought, you know, you don't think, well, this one finally is going to sell. You know, I write because I gotta write. I was, you know, I'm not an overnight success. It might have seemed that way because suddenly in 2011 I had 3 books, but I've been writing for 19 years, very badly. but eventually, you know, that you have to put in that work so that, you know, eventually you do start to learn how to do things right. I had the arrogance of an English teacher. Oh, no, I didn't know how to write. Yeah, I could write papers, you know, academic stuff, but writing fiction and keeping that story going, that's a different thing. So I finally figured it out with Hounded, but did not realize I had figured it out because the entire time I'm running, I'm like, oh, nobody's gonna want to write this. This is so silly. There's this talking dog. This is bullshit. Right? So I mean, but I'm doing it to make myself laugh. But I wasn't thinking that this would actually be marketable stuff. I just thought it was way too silly to ever make it. But when I got done, and my wife read it, she's like, "No, you will send that to an agent." and so she's like, "This is better than most, you know, anything I've seen on the show. So you will do this." I'm like, "All right." So I sent it out, and then I got an agent, and then he sold it in 2 weeks, and I'm like, oh, thank you, honey. Because I seriously did. So I wrote Hounded, I wrote and it was an outline for Hext, and 1 sentence for Hammer. They go to Asgard. And so that was what Del Rey bought. And that's as far as I had thought at the time. So once I got all 3 books done, and I wanted to continue, that is, you know, thank you for buying it, because honestly I would not have had the opportunity to continue writing unless you guys had bought the books. So that's why series die out. When people wait and say, I'm going to wait until the series is finished before I buy it, well, that means you might not ever have the series finished, because unless there's sales enough to justify the publisher putting out the next book, they're not going to do it. So, anyway, at that point, when I, finally was able to start thinking about beyond book 3, that's when I plotted out the rest of it. Cool. Yes?
All right, my question is, if you had one other Urban Casey character, if you could add one to the Iron Druid universe to interact with Atticus, who would it be?
Well, there's a bunch of cool ones.
Govdo.
I really enjoy Jay Wells' stuff. I don't know if you've read Dirty Magic. I really like that cop. In that particular kind of thing. I mean, the world doesn't really match up with mine, but I just really like Kate Prospero as a character. So that one, there's a bunch. I like Face Hunter stuff. I would like to have Jane Yellow Rock have tea with Atticus because they're both kind of into tea. So there's lots of different ones. Thanks. Yes, sir.
My wife is an author, so I've seen the creative process go through, how she writes. Now, I want to ask you, I've seen how your book's been written, how they got a little bit more cohesive as it went on. Do you write in a stream of consciousness, or do you have an outline that you actually go upon?
Hounded was the seat of the pants method because, again, I didn't really know where I was going with it. A lot of it, the world and everything developed as I did more research. I started out saying, you know what, I like dogs. I'd like to start with a character who can talk to dogs. And there are wizards and witches who can do that kind of thing, but if you look at mythology, the relationship there is usually a little bit fraught. It's more of a master-servant kind of thing, or a familiar, you know what I mean? Where they're not equals, they're not friends, and I didn't like that dynamic. So I thought I needed something a little bit kinder, and so I said, well, what about druids? That probably is a thing that would work. And then I started looking into it, and the more I looked into it, I'm like, yeah, this could be fun. Well, no, wait a minute. If I've got a druid in the modern day, well, why is he there? And then I found out that in Irish mythology, there's like 3 different ways to preserve your life forever. Like, one is the method that Atticus actually uses, the Herb Lord Pyramid. There's Manannán Mac Líre's magic hogs. It's like, the bacon of youth. So awesome. But there are tales in Irish mythology about the two of the Danans sitting down and having a feast with Manannán. He slaughters his hogs and then they come back to life again. But their flesh is, grants them youth. The Norse have their version of this. You eat the golden apples of Idun and it preserves your youth, that kind of a thing. So both the Norse and the Tuatha De Danann, they were never originally immortal. They were humans who were preserving their lives through magical means. So that is why Thor could be killed, and why the Morrigan, and so on. So the third way was there were pools, and which still supposedly, they exist today in the Isles, that were healing pools, and getting in them would either heal you up or actually, give you youth as well. So combination of those things. So that's why I thought, well, heck, Atticus can still be around today. Well, why would he be in hiding? Oh, he stole Froggerah, because Froggerah was this sword given to Con of the 100 Battles in the 1st century, and there's no record of him ever giving it back. So that was why I said, oh, that's because my druid stole it. So, you find holes in the mythology, and then you just fit your own narrative into it. And that was what was so fun to me, but that's something that takes a while. You have to do a lot of reading and so on to figure that stuff out. And that's why I've really been enjoying doing the work on the Gold Dust Druid for the 1850s Gold Rush stuff. I've been researching that. It's just fun to figure out how do you fit your character into those historical situations. It's a good time. Yes?
Hi, I just wanted to know if there was any chance of your existing short stories being released in a print anthology or as an ebook.
Well, a lot of them are available one way or another. In various places, but not together. I can't get them together because the rights are owned by different folks. So, yeah, I'm sorry. I won't be able to do that. But I did want to make sure you had access to the new stuff I was writing all in one, volume. So that's why we're doing this the way we are. Yeah, sorry about that. Yes.
Hi. So So if Mickey Mouse were to come to your front door and ask for possibly another Star Wars book, would you be inclined or disinclined to write another one?
I can't. I have so much to do just to finish the Iron Druid, right? And I'm a little bit behind on the Iron Druid because I took time to write the Star Wars thing. They kind of gave me permission. Because Del Rey is my publisher for Iron Druid, but Del Rey is also the one that does Star Wars, right? So that was an in-house decision. Oh, okay, well, because I said, I'd like to do this particular story you're asking me to do, but you realize I won't be able to make my Iron Druid deadlines? And they're like, yes, it's fine. So I'm behind on Iron Druid as it is, but then I also have the Epic Fantasy Trilogy to do, so there's just no way. Sorry, but I thank you for reading Heir of the Jedi. I appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah. Hi. So I really like your books because I like learning about Irish mythology because it's not something I know anything about, and I like learning about it through that. But the thing that I've noticed, like as the series has gone on, is you've started to delve into other cultures' mythologies. And so my question is, like, how do you start doing your research on that? Like, where do you find your starting point?
Some of it is Wikipedia just as a starting point, but not because Wikipedia is accurate, it's because their primary sources should be. And they have that bibliography at the bottom. So for the Tuatha De Danann, this is what I did. I went to the Wikipedia for Tuatha De Danann, and then I go down to the bottom where all of the links are. And one of the links that I found there was to Trinity University in Dublin. And they have the old Irish stuff online with the old Irish on one side of the page and the English right next to it. So that's primary source material, and that's what you should be reading. Now, I will warn you that that old primary source material is not written in an exciting manner. They don't have modern prose sensibilities, okay? It's a bit of a slog to get through it, but you realize, over time, what's really happening here, and then, of course, you can punch it up for modern audiences. And then the prose Edda, I would not recommend for Norse stuff, but go to the Poetic Edda, which is what Tolkien did. He ripped off all of the dwarf names right from the Poetic Edda. They're right, all their Kili, Fili, all of that stuff is sitting right there. Then, did you know the joke about Gandalf's name? The language joke there? Gandalf is a root of two different Old Norse roots. Alf, that last part of it means either elf or white elf. Okay? Gan is wand. So basically, it means that from the minute he walks on, he says, "My name's Gandalf," it means white wizard, but he's introduced as Gandalf the Grey. He was giving away that he was going to be the white wizard later on, but it was buried in his name. So I thought, you're so clever, Tolkien. Your language jokes. But that's of course that's what Tolkien was. He was a linguist, a scholar of the whole languages, and that's how he does stuff like that. So, did that get your question? Other cultures besides that, I try to find anthropological stuff, and then of course, if we're talking about an active faith instead of mythology, then I am talking to people of that faith and getting them to confirm what I'm reading. Especially, for example, the Navajo version of Coyote that we see in Tricked. I had a Navajo student. She was able to tell me some things. Her mother and father were able to tell me some more, and then her grandparents told me even more. So I was making sure that I was being accurate with that stuff as much as possible. And there are different versions, because it's an oral tradition, there are different versions of the creation story. Some versions there are 4 worlds before you get to this one, some versions there are 5. But what's taught at the actual community college on the Navajo Nation is the 4th, so that's what I went with. So, yeah, you just gotta be diligent about that stuff. Not just, I want to get it right, So, there you go. Thanks.
Yes, sir. Yes, I love your Twitter feed. Any new tasty beer recommendations that you have stumbled across?
I tend to like lagers and pilsners, so I'm always going after those and seeing what folks do with that. And there is a new place that opened near me called Libby Brewing, and they do only lagers, which it's an interesting choice because lagers take longer to brew than ales do. The reason you find ales everywhere is because they're easy to make and, fast. Lagers necessarily take longer. So these guys have just committed to doing only lagers, but they did an India Pale Lager, which is or just I didn't know you could do that, you know? So they're doing fascinating stuff, and I really like their, some of the darker lagers and things like that. That's kind of what I'm into these days, is finding interesting lagers and pilsners, because I find the India Pale Ales, for me, I don't really like the hoppy bitterness stuff. Some people are like, yeah, I drink something so bitter that my sphincter is closed till next week. Hey, good for you, man. But that's just not me. You do you. So that's what I'm into, is finding some interesting lagers these days. Yeah, you wonder where it came from, right?
Okay, I really enjoyed your book series, and when I was reading it, I was trying to get my sister to read it. She was like, yeah, because she reads a lot.
Right.
And she's like, there's so much stuff I want to read. I said, Lee, a Druid and Jesus walk into an Irish pub. How can you see this stuff? I wanted to know, where did that come from? What was your inspiration for that?
Well, very early in the beginning of Hounded, when I'm realizing, well, I'm going to make the Irish pantheon real, the question came up, in my mind, well, why isn't everything real? And then I said, well, of course it is. And as soon as I answered that, very basic world-building question, everything became instantly more interesting, So, but the very serious message that I have, everybody usually is like looking at my series and going, haha, sausages and poodles, which is fabulous, I don't mean to disparage that at all, because I love that stuff too. But the serious thing going through here is not just religious acceptance, religious tolerance, but religious acceptance, that everybody is trying to become a better human being, and they have different ways about doing that. And they all want to be, they want to transcend. They want to be more than just this. And so Atticus realizes, as the very last Druid, he cannot be a religious bigot. He can acknowledge the existence of Jesus and all of the other gods and respect the hell out of them and what they're doing, because they actually have the same goal too. We all want to be better. So that is part of where where that came from. I wanted to include both Mary and Jesus and so on. I obviously can't get to all of the gods. There's a heck of a lot of them, but the ones that I do include, they're always the kinder, gentler versions. Jesus is supposed to be about love, which of course is a fantastic message that many gods have, and so I wanted to show that part of it, and of course, by the way, you can't go to Rulabula in Tempe and see the stools where they were, and that bottle that they shared, that was a real bottle they had. They showed it to me. They're like, but don't stare too hard, you might break it. But it was a really incredible bottle of whiskey. That was that very rare vintage, which there are some bottles left in the world still, but they're like more than $1,000 each. And some guy Facebook messaged me a picture. He says, "This is your fault. I could have retired, but instead, I bought this really expensive bottle of whiskey you wrote about in your novels, damn you." But it was like in this, nice box. It was all velvet lined and stuff like that. And he paid, I think $1,200 for it. So Rulabula had one of those bottles, and they were selling the shots for $75 at the time when I was writing the book in 2008. But that bottle is now gone, and they have not gotten a hold of another one. But they do have fantastic stuff. If you guys get a chance to try Redbreast 15-year-old, it's awesome. Don't get the 21-year-old, that's a favor I'm doing you right now, because 21-year-old is incredibly expensive, but it's awful. I bought some to celebrate the completion of my epic, and then I opened it up and it smelled and tasted like medicine. It's like, man, I could have bought a bottle of NyQuil. So I don't know what happened between year 15 and year 21, but it was evil. Something happened, but by the 15 with a clear conscience, it's glorious. So, did that answer your question? I don't know. I think I'm probably off the topic. You good? All right, cool.
And I'm afraid that's all the time we have. But tonight, you can find Kevin on a panel tonight on humor on the Urban Fantasy track, and also tomorrow morning, one on writing closed worlds in urban fantasy, or about closed worlds. So let's give a great DragonCon.